Derek, Steve, a Nintendo Direct was just announced. And the Switch 2's had a fantastic launch. We had Mario Kart World, Donkey Kong Bonanza, some cool third-party games like Street Fighter 6, and there are games that we know about. There's Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, there's Kirby Air Riders, there's the Duskbloods. There's things to look forward to, but in the near future, we don't really know the release dates of anything, and I think we are lacking those big punches, especially from the third-party side. But I'm feeling I need another big Nintendo game as well, though. So, Derek, kick us off with something that's going to get us all excited. What are you feeling here?
Well, that's the funny thing, looking at like where my predictions are at. It's a lot of like release dates. We're going to get release dates and more info because there's a lot of stuff we don't have release dates for that we haven't heard much of since then. You mentioned quite a few of them as we were going along. But I'm going to throw out something that is nebulous at best, not specific, but it's focusing more on the developer. And I think it's going to be time to see our next project from Next Level. What that might be, I don't know, but I really do feel it's about time for us to find out what Next Level has been up to, whether that's a new Luigi's Mansion or heaven help us, Punch Out. Man. That'd be wonderful. Just see what they could do. But I feel like it's time for some certain developers to rise up and be like, hey, this is what we're working on.
When was Battle League? Was that 2021, 2022? It's about 3 or 4 years ago.
Has it been that long? I honestly completely forget.
It's been a while, but even if it hadn't been a while, though, that's not a all-hands-on-deck kind of game. That's something a smaller team works on.
Yeah.
So
that was 2022.
2022, so we're talking 3 years ago then, yeah. And Luigi's Mansion 3 was 2019. So they've definitely had a big gap between a major release. And Luigi's Mansion 3 sold like 13 million copies or something ridiculous like that. So you know that they've got that in their back pocket somewhere.
Oh, for sure. It seems inevitable at this point, especially with how successful that was. And I don't know what they would do from this. Honestly, I'm still like hung up on the Smash Brothers reveal of Castlevania. I want Luigi in a castle dealing with more than just ghosts. I want to see that. Big open castle in the same way as the first game. I think that'd be really cool. You could have all the different subsections still in much the way as the hotel, but don't make it so obviously level based. I think going not even Metroidvania, but just a big open area to go with. I think
it's really been about scope so far with Nintendo games, hasn't it? Like Mario Kart World, big world, Donkey Kong Bonanza, giant stuff to smash. I feel like we're definitely going to get higher scope, but Luigi's Mansion's also always a big technical showcase. Like, it was a big showcase for the GameCube, but it's a pretty big showcase for 3DS. And it probably is the best looking Switch 1 game as well. So I'd imagine that this is where Next Level will just flex what the Switch 2 can do. If they're still going for like the small sort of diorama rooms, they could probably even manage like ray tracing on Switch 2.
Yeah. I could see them pulling it off. I mean, it's inevitably going to look fantastic. It's be amazing to see what direction they go in. Hard to say. I could see them even pulling out at this point the old Nintendo playbook of it's time for a dual world where here's the regular world and here's the ghost dimension type thing that Luigi has to travel between.
You know, we had that mildly at the beginning of 3. It starts off in like that big gold mansion, doesn't it? And then it becomes the ghostly hotel. It'd be super cool to go like back and forth between a regular, just sort of happy Mario world and then more of a horrific nightmare world.
Yeah, this is what the boos see. This is the boos' personal hell.
Yeah, that's a cool pick. Yeah. What about you, Steve? What are you feeling for this Direct?
So maybe this is so. First off, the overall vibe of the Direct, I think, is going to be massively skewed towards third parties because obviously there's this sense that like a lot of developers have been holding back announcements for this Direct, and I'm fully on board with that. I think that, a lot of people didn't really, every developer wants to announce their game in a Direct to get the most eyeballs on it. But I think Nintendo is going to, as they often do, pin a few of their bigger efforts to the direct to keep people watching all the way throughout. Usually you have like your anchor games that like bookend the direct, and then one or two in the middle that, you know, keep people going through kind of the sizzle reels of announcements. So I think they're going to start off with something that in my mind is pretty safe, a big IP that is bound to draw a lot of hype from people. And I think they've already told us what that's going to be. I think it's Splatoon Raiders. I think we're going to see that right at the start of the direct.
What is Splatoon Raiders, Steve? What is that game?
So you kind of alluded to what I think it is just earlier. I think it is a single-player Splatoon game that is a giant open world to explore. I think you get to play as an Inkling. Maybe you make them, maybe you don't. I don't know. But I think it's going to let you explore someplace other than Inkopolis, and the whole thing is just going to be like a giant open world with lots of platforming, you know, that obviously you still ink turf, you still fight salmonids and stuff like that, but it's just a single-player, story-focused game in the Splatoon universe.
They did some roguelike stuff in the last DLC for Splatoon 3. So I wonder if that was some kind of experiment for something in Raiders. Like maybe you'll be able to have a different experience to everyone else. Maybe a bit of it's like randomly generated. I don't know if that's even exciting, but it feels weird that they would test the waters with that in the DLC and then just leave it off. And the word Raiders, something about it to me just screams roguelike. I think those kind of elements might come back for this one.
That'd be interesting if they went almost a Diablo route, where you have a home base and you dive into whatever the island you're into in order to get supplies and other materials that can then be built up for your home base and make your equipment stronger, have a pseudo roguelike element to it, but it's more just diving in. Because I always got just a survivalist sense from how they were all set. So I don't know. I don't know exactly which direction they could go, but
like the word Raiders to me evokes kind of like a Mad Max type of ideology. Sure. Like I just think about like kind of a desolate area and a bunch of like really, you know, like Inklings that look like they are scraping by and surviving. But I do want to revise myself because I've been hearing us say Raiders over and over again. And now I'm like, single player. No, it is Raiders.
Oh, okay.
And that's my point, is that I said single player like 3 times, and I'm like, there's no way it's single player if it's Raiders. Like,
sure.
Is,
oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they could be including, the music group. So
they could.
I don't think so. I think this is like Splatoon's Halo 3 ODST, where it's it's co-op. It's just like a separate single player focused thing, but you can play with other people. But yeah, ODST also included the Halo 3 multiplayer in there, and I can't see Nintendo just squeezing in Splatoon 3's multiplayer into Raiders. I think they're just going to go ham with making more like bespoke level stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is going to be a game that really it's basically like if Salmon Run was its own game with more content and more fleshed out. Like it's going to be a co-op experience as opposed to a PvP experience, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I also think they're going to announce this using a goofy like a Squid Research Lab skit like they used to do.
Oh, of course.
There'll be some guy in a lab coat coming out. Yeah, for sure. I've got 2 third-party predictions. Going to rapid fire these 2. So the Switch 1 actually had quite a lot of backports of existing franchises. So last year, the 3 PC Stalker games came to Switch 1. So like Shadow of Chernobyl and all the other ones. And I think, like, why would you do that unless you were laying the groundwork for Stalker 2? And that sounds kind of wild, because Stalker 2 is quite a beefy game tech-wise, but it runs on Series S. Not particularly well, but it does run on Series S. So I think that's probably coming over. And along those tracks, we also got Baldur's Gate 1 and Baldur's Gate 2 on the Switch 1, and that is primed for Switch 2, especially with that mouse.
Yeah, I heard that mouse is almost a necessity. It makes it a lot simpler to play Baldur's Gate 3 if you have a mouse or the PC setup. So kind of potentially get best of both worlds if you get a Switch 2 version. And yeah, I mean, both those make a complete sense to me. I don't know if there's much else to say about it, because that's the thing. How much of this is going to be backports of
probably a fair amount of it will be backports. But maybe we'll get some catching up, though. Like, with Switch 1, you had to optimize it, get another studio in, like Panic Button, to make their own version of the game. That doesn't seem as necessary this time. Like, we just did a video on WWE 2K25, and it's just the PS5 game. Like, uncompromised for the most part. And I think you can probably do that. Like, with Baldur's Gate 3, for example, it's an older game at this point, but it's going to be the same. Maybe it's going to be a bit lower resolution, but it's going to be the same game. So when it comes to stuff like Kingdom Hearts 4, maybe, it's not going to be in here, way too early for that. But when that game comes along, it'll probably come to Switch 2 at the same time.
Well, it's just a matter of, speaking of that, it's like it's the opportunity for a bunch of cloud games to actually have native, ports this time around. So now we can get
Hitman was a cloud game.
Yeah, we can get Resident Evil 2, 4, 3 remake. You can get Kingdom Hearts Story So Far and Kingdom Hearts 3. It's just all those that just got those cloud only based games. Makes sense to get something like that. It's prime subject, but I'm looking through and just name a popular game that just came out that for other systems that hasn't been on the Switch yet. Clair Obscur.
Expedition 33 is going to happen.
Yeah, Metaphor, Persona 3, bam, just I think we're going to see a lot of those.
Yeah, Metaphor guaranteed. Persona 4 Remake was announced during the last Summer Games Fest, and no Switch 2 logo. That's happening. There's absolutely no way that's not happening. But I want to bounce off what you said about Capcom, because Resident Evil 2, 3, all that, yeah, they have cloud versions. But Capcom also, they love porting their old stuff. And everything they have done that hasn't been on the Switch is going to happen. Guaranteed. So Resident Evil 2, 3, 4, 7, Village, Devil May Cry 5, Dead Rising, whatever that was called, the deluxe remaster. Everything they're doing, I think they're just going to probably do them as like eShop exclusive games and just drip feed them out over the next few months, like they did on Switch 1 with Devil May Cry Trilogy and the Resident Evil games. They are absolutely coming. And with Resident Evil 2 and 3, they actually had 120 Hz modes on PS5 and Series X. And I reckon maybe you couldn't reach a 420, but in VRR you could probably get a decent 100 FPS on Resident Evil 2. So that might be a cool 120 Hz showcase.
Yeah, I think Capcom is going to come out swinging. I don't know exactly, I don't know exactly what they'll announce. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if we saw Monster Hunter. I think that Monster Hunter is a huge franchise, obviously has a long history with Nintendo, and I would be really surprised if Wilds didn't get at least announced for Switch 2 at some nebulous later date during the Direct, because that feels like a game that Capcom wants to put on everything.
Oh, yeah. And if not Wilds, Stories 3 feels like it's on the cards, because we're in that new generation of Monster Hunter now with Wilds. And they tend to start doing spin-offs around now. So if Wilds can't happen, then Stories 3 is probably, in development right now.
Do you think they go as far back as bringing World to the Switch 2 as well, or are they not going to bother?
Probably not, right?
Yeah, I feel
probably
like
a little too old in that case.
I feel like they don't want to splinter the fan base too much. So
true.
I could see Stories because it's considered like an offshoot of the series, but Wilds is really where all their development effort is, and so I don't think they want to bring a game they're not updating anymore.
True. There are some comments like Game Bear Benji says maybe a 60 FPS patch for Rise. That's possible. That would be cool. I wouldn't expect too many third parties to give their games performance updates, but it'd be rad if they did. But Nintendo, though, very likely to do more performance updates and Switch 2 editions. And I think the two most likely candidates right now are fairly recent games. Mario Wonder and Pikmin 4 feel primed for not only 4K updates, but also Kirby-styled expansions. So Mario Wonder with a new Luigi U kind of campaign. That feels really likely.
Yes.
That's interesting. I also had Switch 2 editions on my own list of predictions, but different games.
Okay.
I agree
Same.
with Mario Wonder and Pikmin 4. However, I think a big part of this Direct is going to be the Imprisonment War. They're going to show
Yes.
that off. And I think as part of that, like at the very end, we'll get like a quick announcement that we're going to get a Switch 2 edition of Age of Calamity to improve the, it's much better on Switch 2 to be clear. But I think that you could get resolution bumps, performance enhancements out of that, along with the original Hyrule Warriors. And I think those will be free Switch 2 edition upgrades or maybe something to that effect. I feel like Koei Tecmo is going to have like a few things in the Direct.
Yes, that's a great idea, yeah. And there was a clip in their creator interview for Age of Imprisonment, and it's like a 3-second clip that was at 60 FPS, while the rest of them are at 30. So it seems like that game has a performance mode, which is awesome. So we're finally getting 60 FPS Nintendo Musos for the first time since... I feel like Fire Emblem Warriors had one, right? But
I think it did, yeah.
I think it did, yeah. Fire Emblem Warriors had a performance mode.
I mean, my predictions for updates, I think Thousand Year Door, 60 FPS patch makes complete sense. Same for Xenoblade Chronicles X. Those are both, seem primed and ready to go. Would make sense to pop in there. I don't know if they'll go too ham on like new versions. I think it's going to be basic updates. But if we do get like Wonder-ish DLC, I'd love to see. I think it'd be cool if either Wario or Rosalina got a spotlight and have levels sort of based around them. I think because Rosalina was in 3D World, and maybe I'm affected by my son because he liked playing as Rosalina. Now he's like, "Where's Rosalina and Wonder?" So I'm like, "All right, well, let's get Rosalina and Wonder." He'd be down for that.
It'd be very cool. This is kind of retreading a prediction we've said already, but I feel like with Switch 2, Nintendo aren't necessarily doing the Switch 1 library again, because it's kind of an extension of the Switch 1 library. But both because it's backwards compatible, but also we've launched with, after a month, we had Donkey Kong as the headliner rather than Mario. I think the big reason for that is because we didn't have a Donkey Kong on the Switch, not a new one at the very least. And just to go back on Next Level a moment, I do feel like it's kind of time for Punch-Out, right? Because we haven't had one since the Wii, and it's a genre which it doesn't really have any non-indie competitors in. It's like a rhythm boxing game. I think they're going to keep continuing to do like franchises that the Switch never got. Obviously we'll get those iterative like Smash Brothers and all that, and like a new 2D Mario, new 3D Mario. They're all coming, of course. But when it comes to the niche ones, I do reckon we'll see, those finally make their way over. So Punch-Out's one of them. We had Advance Wars with the remake. I wonder, maybe Way Forward's doing a brand new game with that. But to really get to something new, Camelot. They've been in Mario sports game hell for a long time. They do good stuff. Aces is awesome. But they have had a lot of swings and misses in their time. And I think it's kind of time for them to return to their roots with either a brand new SRPG in the way of Shining Force, or Golden Sun, which is what I think they're actually doing. So I think it's time for Golden Sun to come back with a new game, not a remake.
That's an interesting one. I don't know. If it is, I think it would be a smaller game, like in terms of just development cost budget. Like I think it would be like a 2D pixel art kind of game, if that makes sense.
Maybe that, or maybe go along the lines of like a Bravely Default, that sort of art style.
Yeah,
maybe.
Something like that I think would make sense. I just wonder because as much as it's loved within our community, I don't know how much it would reach outside that.
It is still very much a cult classic. The fact that it like, hey, we're bringing back Golden Sun on the DS and Dark Dawn only did okay.
True, but like, let me ask you this: if Golden Sun came back, how much do you think it would sell, like copies wise? Like, what's the roof for sales?
That is difficult for Switch because it always goes way higher than I think. So
just
I
throw a
would
number
say 2 million.
That's what Xenoblade sells, right? So Xenoblade, huge game, like tons of voice acting, big worlds, sells 2 million every time. I think Golden Sun can have a little bit of that pie. Nintendo have a lot of budget to spread around.
Fair.
I think it can be done on a larger scale.
I think they definitely would go more RPG-ish. I can't see them going strategy RPG because, well,
Fire Emblem fits that.
Yeah,
right?
Fire Emblem. Yeah. Nintendo doesn't really double dip on a lot of too many genres outside of platformers. Fire Emblem, something Fire Emblem has to be announced this time, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, what Engage? If you go on like the PEGI ratings board for Engage, it was rated, and the way PEGI works is you have to submit a full working build of the game to rate it, and it was submitted in 2020, like during COVID, I'm pretty sure, and it released in 2022, I think it was. So they were sitting on that for a long time. And going by Fire Emblem development cycles, they should have finished the next one a long time ago as well. So there's almost certainly 2 Fire Emblems coming up.
Yeah,
Has to be.
And those would be huge. I think a Fire Emblem would make a great holiday game. When people have more time to sit down and play something with a bit more substance to it, I think that they could announce that as like a holiday 2025 title.
Yeah.
One of them, if not both of them.
Or do you think Genealogies first or Three Houses 2? Three Houses follow up, whatever goes with that formula. Which one's first, remake or new game?
I think remake.
Yeah, I think remake comes out as a smaller, like, well, I don't want to say smaller, a more budget-friendly title, somewhere in the middle of the year when there's a lull, and then your big holiday game, or near that time frame when people are shopping, you drop the proper large, big budget Fire Emblem title.
See, you say that, but I look at Fire Emblem Echoes, and that's like the best budget, or at least the best looking one of the 3DS trilogy. Like it is, the production values are just out the wazoo. So I'd love to see that for Genealogy as well. But Genealogy is going to take a bit of work because I think it goes into some rough subject matter, from my understanding. So we'll see what the Nintendo does about all that. But I don't think the budget matters so much with Fire Emblem.
Yeah. Well, here is, I think, a big question. We can go into the more granular stuff soon. After Donkey Kong, which is now released, what's the big game? Like, we got Metroid Prime 4 Switch 2 Edition, Pokemon Legends ZA Switch 2 Edition. They are absolutely big. Pokemon specifically is huge. But neither of those are like Switch 2, specific games. They're multi-platform Switch 1 games. What is the next big Switch 2 game? Like, what is there to be excited for? And so, like, what do you picture the holiday game being? Because we're talking about Fire Emblem, Golden Sun. They're cool games, but they're not the games that drive people to pick up the system. So, like, what do you picture there being in the holiday? Is there room for Mario this year?
I don't think there's room for Mario, and the reason why, as much as it pains me because I want our boy to come back, one, I think that, Nintendo is having a big think about what Mario is, like what a next-gen Mario is, because obviously Donkey Kong shows that Nintendo had a lot of ideas that they, for whatever reason, didn't want to use Mario for. DK is a better fit for what ended up being Bonanza,
for sure.
But, I still go back to 3D Land and Bowser, or 3D World and Bowser's Fury, and think that this was their idea of where Mario's headed, and that's going to take more time than they had. So they worked on Bonanza in the meantime. So I think we're going to get like a giant open world Mario where there's just seamless transitions between worlds. But I think that's going to take a long time. I think Mario's 2026.
I was going to say, I don't think it's going to be that far off, because Koizumi has no involvement in Bonanza. So I think there's probably 2 separate EPD teams working from Bonanza, whatever Mario turns out to be. Because Koizumi is always a big part of those games, whether it's a producing role or directing role. And to have no involvement in Bonanza, he's doing something, right? I think I agree, though, not this year, but it could be shown soon, though. It doesn't have to release this year, but it could be announced.
It could be as a tease, just keep people interested in the Switch 2.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing mention of like, the potentially Pokemon is the big holiday game because they're the one. It's the one getting the bundle because Mario Kart. But I think people would argue that Bonanza is more of a system seller than Mario Kart. But Mario Kart's the one with the bundle because, well, if you pick up a Switch, if you pick up a Nintendo console, you're going to get the Mario Kart as well. You pick up a Nintendo console, you're likely going to get Pokemon as well. So I don't think being the pack-in necessarily marks you as the premier title for a holiday.
No.
As for what else it could be, I'm like racking my brain through what Nintendo has, and I'm drawing a bit of a blank.
I mean, it's not multi-million, well, it's multi-million, yeah, but it's not like big million seller. But Monolith Soft don't have anything announced. Xenoblade X definitely was not their full team's worth, and 3 was a while ago. And this team works fast, so Monolith Soft absolutely have something to announce.
They could. It feels a little soon, but they could.
I mean, to be fair, though, I would not have expected in Switch's year one for Xenoblade 2 to come either. And we got that in December of 2017, so I wouldn't rule them out. Me personally, I think that Nintendo is likely going to position Metroid as the big end-of-year game. I think that, to be clear, I think in this Direct, we absolutely get a release date for Metroid Prime 4 and a closer look at the game.
It would be so weird if we didn't. It was weird we didn't get a release date last time.
I imagine it's going to get a bit of a little bit more details, give a bit more of the hook, and then we'll get a dedicated Direct like Bonanza that'll really sell you on the Prime 4.
I think that's the next, outside of Pokemon, because Pokemon always gets a massive marketing push. I think that Metroid is the next game that gets a big marketing push from Nintendo. I wouldn't be at all surprised if it ended up being like November or even December for the release of that game, because I think they'll give Pokemon Legends ZA time to breathe, especially considering it has a hardware bundle associated with it. But I think that's the game after ZA that Nintendo's going to want everybody to focus on. And it is really surprising that we don't have a release date for that, given that, back in April, it was playable at 1080p 120 FPS on the Switch 2, which is the only game we've really seen, actually use 120 FPS as the frame rate for gameplay.
Yeah, we have so few games like that. No games like that outside of Welcome Tour's ball guessing game. It's kind of boring to see them as that, because they're going to be great games, absolutely, especially Metroid Prime 4. But I guess it's similar to what PS5 did. Like Horizon, Gran Turismo, God of War. They were all PlayStation 4 games, but they were also the big PS5 games. So I guess that's just kind of the reality of it.
I think it's too soon for another Zelda, especially after getting both.
It's definitely too soon for Zelda.
And Echoes of Wisdom. So,
what about Kirby Air Riders? What is the twist of that game? Because I don't think it's just more Kirby Air Ride. And Sakurai is back on this, so this is clearly his dream project to come back to. What makes this game interesting? Especially because the first one is a cult classic, but it also reviewed pretty poorly.
That's tough to suss out, because obviously we only have a CG trailer to go off of, and it didn't really give us anything. My guess would be that if you're making a follow-up to a game like this, and maybe this is going to be nuts, but we're going to get other Nintendo characters in Kirby Air Ride before we get other characters in Mario Kart. In Mario Kart World. I think that maybe they may try to use the Halo effect from other franchises to get people to play Kirby Air Ride.
I mean, Sakurai can't shake his crossovers, I guess. Maybe.
I can't quite see that, but the funny thing is that Kirby's so good about having such a huge lineup. Look at Star Allies and all of its various characters that got added to that game. But also, Sakurai tends to not use stuff that he hasn't personally done from Kirby, as we saw with Smash Brothers. There's not a whole lot there from
it's always like Super Nintendo era, isn't it?
Yeah. He doesn't really go beyond that. So I don't know if he'll go for a lot more of the modern characters or the characters that have popped up over time. So that one's hard to say. My best idea is that he's going to just take City Trial to the next level.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the big hook there, is City Trial was the thing everybody loved. The main racing will probably be much more fleshed out and maybe capitalize on the one button controls that he envisioned initially. I don't know if he'll stick with that, but I feel like City Trial is definitely just going to go hog wild.
In his Sakurai YouTube show, he talked about how Kirby Air Ride was made in was it 4 months or something ridiculous? At least the core of the development. The planning was longer than that, but it was such a short cycle. I don't think this is going to be a long cycle either, but Sakurai games are always packed with things. Like Kid Icarus Uprising is bigger than most video games in the world. not just the story, but all the unlockables. Then you got the online and all of that. I think this is going to be deceptively huge, but probably within a smaller scope, because Smash is absolutely on the cards. But whether it's in full development, I don't think we'll see anything about Smash until after Air Riders, but it probably is in production right now.
I wonder about Smash, and the only reason I wonder is because obviously we had, Smash finished updating, wound down its updates, and then suddenly it started getting them again.
Yeah, which means there's a team back at Bandai Namco doing that. Like they've assembled some people.
Exactly. They put together a group to, they brought the band back together to start doing stuff with Smash. And I mean, to me, that smacks of we got Switch 2 dev kits and we need to start familiarizing ourselves with them. So I presume that there is a Switch 2 edition of Smash or some type of Switch 2 performance related update for Smash Ultimate very soon. Like this year soon, because obviously they came back and started working on Smash again a while ago. And so if you're doing like a performance update, which is a great way to kind of get familiar with the hardware and figure out what, how much headroom you have, we've seen it seems to be a much more common practice these days than it was, which is why we got The Last of Us on like every generation for the last 3 generations. I think that developers get their hardware, take a game they've built, and then find out just how much performance headroom they gain on something new and figure out what they can fit. So I actually wouldn't be surprised if we got some type of Smash Ultimate performance update, strictly performance on Switch 2 in this direct. Like if they were just like, hey, it got a resolution bump and it looks much nicer. I don't know, maybe photo mode looks better. Something not very substantive, but
I mean, this could be 120 hertz, Steve. This could be the 120 FPS.
That's true.
Game. Yeah,
that's true. You could not bump the visuals and give us 120 FPS, and
yeah,
that would be amazing for a game like Smash. It would do a lot for the chaos of that game.
Yeah. I want to move on to brand new games a moment. So let's talk a little bit about what third parties are going to do. We've talked about a few of them. We know some games. We know like Final Fantasy VII Remake is coming. That's probably going to get a release date. But Square never stop making games, do they? They always make those big games. They always make those small games. But I want to focus just a moment on their big stuff. So we know Dragon Quest HD 1+2, HD 2D is coming. Nothing more to say about that, really. But then we also have Final Fantasy 15. We also have 16 even. And we also have Final Fantasy 14. And I think both of those are very likely candidates, especially because 16 will have a Series S version. So that's definitely a lower ceiling to port to Switch 2. So both 16 and 14, I think, are incredibly likely.
Yeah. 14 is an inevitability. I think it'll take a little bit longer to get it ready, potentially. I don't know if 14 will be this year. 16 seems more likely. In terms of just having another one, because that just seems to be the pair. You get 7 remake and you get 16 on a console, and then you go from there. It seems to be their MMO. Although I guess Xbox did get 14 before 16 and 7, so I could be wrong on that one. But it definitely seems likely that those will all come to it eventually. As far as new stuff from Square, that's where it gets tricky, because we have Tactics coming as well. Like, there's a lot of Final Fantasy.
It's going to be something with a weird name and the same font as Octopath Traveler.
Yeah.
Yes.
A project name that ends up being the title of the game. Yeah. I could see Square releasing something new. Now, I don't think this is going to happen, but I'm going to throw it out there as a prediction in the hopes that it does. Chrono Trigger remake. Like, sure. I want an HD 2D Chrono Trigger. That would be an incredible thing. And a Nintendo Direct, I think, would be the perfect place to see it, because that game's legacy is on the Super NES. But yeah, I just don't know if that would be something that'd be ready. But that would be... I do agree with you, John. 7 and 16 seem obvious. I wouldn't even be surprised if we got like a release date announcement for remake with, a full announcement of Rebirth.
Oh yeah, it's coming.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah,
it is
Rebirth is definitely coming.
Yeah, whenever they did the creator interview, they kept saying the Final Fantasy VII Remake series is coming to Switch 2. Yeah. They never just said remake.
They want to make sure Rebirth is on as many consoles as possible, because there is no way that the final Final Fantasy VII game is not on everything at launch.
Yeah, and they're also panicking about performance. They're always saying it underperforms, so putting it on other platforms just makes sense.
Yeah.
I think Chrono Trigger makes a lot of sense. HD 2D is not going anywhere. We've had Octopath Traveler 1, 2, Dragon Quest 3, Live Alive, Triangle Strategy. It's an ongoing thing. They'll get to Chrono Trigger eventually. I don't know whether it's time, but it is happening. Absolutely, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to run through the publishers a moment. Xbox. Xbox, gonna have something. They've done a lot of games for PS5 this year. They've done Forza Horizon 5. They've done Age of Empires 2. What else have they done? They've done other things as well. But Switch missed out on all of those, which is weird because Switch usually gets everything. It got Grounded, it got... what else did it get? It got other stuff. It got the Ori games. They usually have a parity of doing Switch and PS5, but they missed out on that. And it's probably because Nintendo are like, you can't announce third-party games right now. So I expect a bit of an Xbox blowout. And Forza Horizon 5 feels delightful for Switch 2. Imagine that in the palm of your hands, just driving around, doing whatever you want. That feels perfect for Switch 2.
That would be amazing. That's one of the first games we reviewed here on GVG back when it came out. It would be really cool to see that game come to Switch 2. I think it's time for Master Chief to make an appearance on the Switch. It has been rumored for like 5 years that we were going to see Master Chief Collection on Switch, on the original Switch. And maybe, at this point it's anybody's guess why that never happened. If I had to guess, it would be something to do with horsepower or optimization, because Microsoft is going to be demanding that, Halo's their marquee franchise, even now. And so I don't think they'd want it to have performance issues on any additional hardware they put it on. Switch 2 could easily run those games at 60 FPS.
A big problem too is Master Chief Collection is 100 gigabytes. And Switch 1 has no games like that. Switch 2
now it's
does.
starting to have games like that with Switch 2.
But a cool part of Master Chief Collection as well is you can download them separately. So you can just have Halo 1, just have Halo 2. So that 100 gigabyte ceiling becomes less of a problem. And if you wanted it all, you can fill up half of your Switch 2 storage with Halo. That's fine. But I think that there's no reason not to do Switch 2. It's gonna work absolutely fine. And to have...
Honestly, as far as an Xbox title that would appeal to the Nintendo audience, people wanted Rare Replay for years. Put Rare Replay on the Switch 2. I think people would be so delighted to have just all those games available. Some of it's a little redundant because of NSO, but I don't think that's a huge deal when you look at the sheer value of everything that's on the Rare Replay. I think that just makes a lot of sense, especially because it would be a lot of Nintendo owners' first experience of the the 360 versions.
Well, that's part of the
Banjo.
problem. Is Rare Replay uses backwards compatibility to run all the 360 stuff.
Right.
So Banjo, Perfect Dark, and then all the 360 games they're not native. They're just 360 emulation. I think that's what stopped Rare Replay from coming to PC and everywhere else. So it'd be cool, but I kind of feel like NSO is the Rare Replay graveyard.
Yeah, it does kind of take it off there.
Yeah, but there's so much more at Xbox though. We've got, Grounded came to Switch 1, but it wasn't a great version, so a Switch 2 version of Grounded. Indiana Jones, it's on Series S. Series S is always what's saving us here. Indiana Jones could happen. And Sea of Thieves, that's on PS5. That's happening.
I could see Killer Instinct as well.
Oh,
I
yes.
think Killer Instinct is a prime candidate.
I think there's also a very real chance that Starfield ends up on the Switch too.
Yeah.
We are just 2 weeks away from Gamescom. We're not far from Gamescom. When is Gamescom?
I think it's 3 weeks. Not too far away.
we're weeks away either way, and it is heavily rumored that Starfield will be announced for PlayStation at Gamescom. So I could see Microsoft announcing this for Switch as well. Maybe not even in the Direct. Maybe at Gamescom. But again, Starfield runs fine on Series S. People play it on Steam Deck. It's definitely something that could exist on Switch.
Yeah. And it needs that second launch.
Yes.
PC is usually Bethesda's main thing, but it didn't have the buzz. And maybe doing simultaneous PS5 Switch 2 will give that buzz.
I don't think anything can really help that game, honestly.
No, it is kind of fundamentally flawed, yeah, but maybe it will get a second wave. But it's likely, though. And they did Skyrim on the Switch 1, so it's definitely possible. Is Oblivion possible? That's also Series S, that's always the bottom line. Is it possible
Oblivion.
to put that on Switch 2?
That makes sense.
Yeah, I think Oblivion would be possible. One game that I wonder about, and honestly I've not played it enough to know. John, do you think that Microsoft would go crazy and put Flight Sim on the Switch 2?
Maybe. It's so online tethered that's part of the problem. Because like the Flight Sim, the last one at least, uses cloud streaming for a lot of its stuff. The 2020 games are awesome, but the newer one, it relies on internet a lot, which doesn't go hand in hand with Switch 2. But I think it makes sense to port it to PS5. And if it makes sense to port it to PS5, then why not do Switch 2 as well? So, yeah, I think it's likely, yeah.
I'd want to see that. I think I'd be more intrigued to play it on Switch 2 just to see how it handles it than I am to play it on, Xbox or PC or anything.
Do you think, we got that Gears of War remake coming out on both PS5 and Xbox. Would they just toss in, like, hey, we also worked on it for Switch 2. It comes out day and date. Same
with here's the thing with Xbox. It's all likely. Like, there's not a single game where I'd say, I don't think so.
Yeah.
It's all on the cards.
Welcome to third-party Xbox.
Yeah. We are forgetting one giant thing with Xbox, though. And that's Call of Duty. They are contractually obligated to bring Call of Duty to the Switch 2.
Yeah.
And this seems like a great time to show Call of Duty running on Nintendo's new hardware, because none of us expected it on Switch 1. None of us wanted it on Switch 1. But Call of Duty, say what you will about it, it would be impressive to see that running, at a nice resolution, decent frame rate on Switch 2. I think that would be it could end up being a technical showcase for the console.
They were always very good with the Nintendo versions. The Wii games had Wii-style pointing. And then when it came to Wii U, they gave you traditional and then also Wii-style pointing. So I could see them fully embracing gyro and mouse controls in the Switch 2 version of Call of Duty. That would be awesome. That would debatably make it the best console to play it on, even if it's technically compromised in areas. Having a mouse on a console, I think I'd rather play it with that than on PS5 or Series X.
I just love the idea of someone on a Switch 2 playing Call of Duty as Beavis and Butthead headshotting people with mouse mode. Like, objectively the most annoying player on Earth.
Yeah. Are we seeing the next Black Ops coming, or are we just seeing Warzone? Because they're contractually obligated, but do they have to do all of them?
I think for now it would be Warzone. I think we'd see Warzone come because that is kind of their money printing machine at the moment. Microsoft wants to put that on as much hardware as they can to get those sweet microtransaction dollars from people.
Hell yeah.
So
we love them.
I think we're going to see that, but obviously anything from that point forward is fair game.
Speaking of microtransactions and just those type of games, is it time for, in the same vein, the Hoyoverse games and Marvel Rivals to come to Switch 2?
Genshin was announced for Switch 1, if you remember.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It never came out. Yeah, they're all on the cards. Totally.
All makes sense.
I could see the scope of some of their more recent games, Hoyoverse games, is much smaller so that they can run on less powerful devices. I'm honestly kind of surprised a version of Zenless Zone Zero never came to Switch 1. I think it could have worked. I would not at all be shocked if anything from their library came to Switch 2. I think it's just a matter of time. The only thing I will say is I would lay good money that they didn't get Switch 2 dev kits until recently. They were probably on one of the bottom waves of people who got them just because Nintendo is courting people with more traditional monetization models up front.
Yeah.
When
it comes to EA, I don't know if I expect much. Dead Space Remake would be cool, but I don't expect it. The FIFA, Madden, all that. I think it's cool to finally get parity versions, but not very exciting for us. And I don't think Battlefield would come. Battlefield 3 was announced for Wii U, but never came out. So maybe there's potential there. But Plants vs. Zombies was trademarked. I forget the subtitles, like Plants vs. Zombies Return to the Garden or something like that. And honestly, that would be an amazing Switch 2 mouse game.
Yeah. I think EA is going to do something. They can't ignore the success of the original Switch. You know, they famously took a wait and see approach with that. We got some FIFAs on the original Switch, but nothing that was super good. I think that
It was literally the same FIFA every year. They just changed the stats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they have said they regret it. Like in their financials, they say they regret not jumping on the Switch. I'll let you go with where you're going, Steve. But I've definitely got an EA game in mind.
Oh no, I was gonna say I don't necessarily know. I think maybe we might get a second pass at Dragon Age Veilguard, which was not very well received, but I think that EA might try to turn a profit on that by monetizing the Switch audience. But I'm honestly not sure what they would put on beyond Plants vs Zombies.
The Sims, the perfect mouse game.
Mass Effect.
Yeah.
But Mass Effect, you could do as well. You could definitely do the remaster that they did. But I feel like that could happen for sure. But the Sims, I feel like, is the perfect EA game.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm trying to think. I don't play a lot of EA games anymore, so it's like blanking on what a lot.
Star Wars. We have Fallen Order.
Star Wars,
we're expecting Outlaws from Ubisoft. Looked terrible last time, but I reckon they've probably made it look a bit better. And Outlaws is interesting because it's a ray tracing game. Like there's no baked shadows you can turn on that's designed for ray tracing, so they can't just flip it off. And they showed like 10 seconds a few months ago. It looked dreadful. But I reckon that probably has come a long way.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see that. You know, on the Ubisoft front, I also would not be surprised if we got a port of Assassin's Creed Shadows.
Oh yeah,
that game is gorgeous on PlayStation, so I'd be very interested to see what they're able to pull off with the Switch hardware. You know, now that we have the Switch 2, we know that games can get pretty close to what you see on PlayStation. I think there's a very real chance that we could get a very nice looking port out of Ubisoft for Assassin's Creed.
I reckon so. And they supported the Wii U with Assassin's Creed games. We had Black Flag and 3, I believe.
Yeah.
And they did a bunch on the Switch 1, didn't they? They ported a lot of the 360 era games.
Yep, we got, what was it called? Freedom Cry. I think we got another port of Assassin's Creed 4 on there. You know, we had Liberation. Yeah, they did quite a few. Rogue, I think, also came out. Like, a lot of those 360 era Assassin's Creed games made their way to the original Switch.
This is less interesting because Kingdom Battle magically runs at 60 FPS for reasons we don't understand on Switch 2. But Sparks of Hope underperformed, and Ubisoft were quite vocal about that, saying like they wish they waited until the next console. Do you think just a remastered compilation of the two Mario and Rabbids games makes sense?
I do. I think that those games were, you know, Miyamoto himself worked on those, so clearly Nintendo believed in those two games. And I think that Nintendo is very keen to prove a point when a game fails. You know, like they want to prove that it was not the game, that it was the audience, as we saw with every Wii U game coming to Switch. So I think they'd give Ubisoft the green light to re-release these.
And there's a lot of DLC for both of them.
Exactly. I was going to say. Yeah, that makes sense. We spoke about Capcom earlier, but I do want to say that I do think it's time for a new Capcom collection. I don't know what it used to be. I would say Mega Man, but you know,
they're running out.
Be nice if we get Star Force or Legends at this point, because that's basically what we have left. But lately we're getting fighting game collections. I'm trying to think what other collections they could put out. The only other one that I can think of that I think would get people excited, at least RPG fans, and there are a lot of RPG fans on Switch. Breath of Fire 3 and 4.
Totally.
1 and 2 get re-released constantly. 3 and 4, not so much. So
yeah, from Capcom, it's Breath of Fire and Resident Evil Classics. It's those two are the ones I want the most.
Yeah, an RE Classics collection would be amazing. I think those games, you know, we've gotten the remakes; they're fantastic. It'd be nice to have the originals on modern hardware.
Yeah, because they're totally different games. Yeah. All right. Let's go with biggie ones, which were just mentioned in the live audience. That's a very good segue. Rockstar. Rockstar, they have GTA 6 coming. Is it outlandish to say that could come to Switch 2 when, remember, Series S is around? Series S is a thing, bringing the scope down. So
I still think that I mean, Rockstar is obviously of the size to have had Switch 2 development kits for quite some time.
Yeah.
And while they do support the Switch very nicely, they exclusively support it with much older games, like games that have been out for a long time. I think we will see some Rockstar support. I'm not 100% it would be in the direct, but if we did get anything, I think it would be the long-rumored ports of GTA 5 and Red Dead 2. We got Red Dead 1 in 2023. I think Red Dead 2 could come to the Switch 2 very easily. That was an Xbox One and PS4 game.
It was 4K on PS4 Pro.
Yeah.
And Xbox One X. So like it could probably be 4K on Switch 2.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that at all. But I do think GTA 6 is just a big line in the sand at this point. I don't see Rockstar putting any effort into porting that to Switch 2, not at launch, maybe like a few years on from launch. And I fully suspect we're at least a year and a half to 2 years away from GTA 6 coming out, even on PlayStation.
So, yeah, Red Dead 2, 100%. I do feel like GTA 6 could happen. If you go on the eShop charts, GTA Trilogy is like always there. Whenever it's on set, it's like always on the charts. Clearly there's an audience there for it. I do think the Series S being the bottom line makes enough wiggle room to make it happen. It won't be the definitive version by any means, but I feel like there's a possibility for it.
Man,
they can make it work just enough, I think.
Yeah.
I think Nintendo desperately wants that to happen. It's easy to understand why. You don't need a business degree to know why Nintendo would want GTA 6 on the Switch at launch. And admittedly, I would lose my mind. Like, I think I and the rest of the collective internet would explode if we found out GTA 6 was coming day and date with the other versions to Switch 2. That would be a massive boon for Nintendo. To be able to say that, you know, it kind of would blow away some of the remaining Switch stigma, right? Like, oh, you know, it's not as powerful as the other guys, so it gets stuff way later. That said, I mean, even at my most optimistic, I just kind of don't envision it happening, but I want to be wrong on that one. Yeah.
Right. I think the only big publisher we're really missing now is Bandai Namco, who are always a pretty big supporter as well. They just did Shadow Labyrinth, awesome game. But
Very good.
Can you think of anything that isn't a remake that's likely? Because we could get another Tales remake, but I want something a bit more interesting than that.
Boy. Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, for Bandai Namco, I think we will get some Switch 2 editions of older games. Like, I think Kakarot will get, like, a Switch 2 update.
Oh, yeah,
I don't know that it'd be a Switch 2 edition, but it'll get an update for sure. Especially because they have DLC coming out for that. I'm going to go ahead and say, though, that I think we're going to get a new Dragon Ball Xenoverse game. Xenoverse 2 came out for the PS4? Maybe even the PS3?
It might have been PS3.
It's been getting DLC for the better part of a decade, and they just kind of keep adding stuff on. I think we'll get a new entry in that series soonish, and it would definitely hit Switch 2 day and date with everything else. Bandai Namco is one of the publishers that's excellent about supporting the Switch.
Yeah, totally. Everything Dragon Ball is going to come. they put it all on Switch 1 whenever they could. So whether it's late or not, it's all coming for sure. I wonder if any of their remastered collections will get a new game. So we've had Pac-Man World and Klonoa.
Yeah, Pac-Man World. Yeah.
Is Klonoa 3 and Pac-Man World 4 likely?
I was thinking Klonoa. I think Klonoa is more likely at this point because we just got Shadow Labyrinth, which is technically Pac-Man.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. So you're thinking we're going to get a Klonoa 3, because I don't think Klonoa Collection sold well enough for that.
It didn't sell well enough, no. But I don't know. I feel like whenever a publisher tries a collection of older games, there's always that, that idea of maybe it's going to pan out into a bigger franchise. Like, why just do a one-off when you can keep building? So I think it's not unlikely. But I kind of feel like Pac-Man World 4 is more likely than Klonoa 3 is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people are hoping for World 2.
Yeah, but you don't do World 3 though. Like, there's no reason to do World 3. Like, World 2 is kind of where you draw the line, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and as some people are saying, live audience, Elden Ring does need a release date. That's true.
I'm sure we'll get that.
Yeah, that's probably not far off.
Maybe they'll. Do you think they'll? Do you think they'll try to sweeten the pot by having either? I can see that including the DLC that came with it originally.
Yes,
So,
yeah.
do that.
Tree.
Night Rain would probably be a separate game though,
Yeah.
if they decide to bring that over. But I don't know if that's eating its own market if we release Night Rain and base Elden Ring at the same time.
Yeah, you probably just stick with Elden Ring.
I think Bandai Namco is going to be keen to bring Night Rain to the Switch. I didn't realize this because I feel like it was a game that released and then we just didn't hear a whole lot about it, but it was the top selling game for June.
Yeah.
It sold more than anything on Switch 2.
It sold
so
over
I
5
imagine
million. Yeah.
Yeah, it did extremely well. And for a game that I heard comparatively very little about post-release. So I think that people are, Bandai Namco is going to want to put this on the Switch 2 and get as many people playing it as possible since it's a multiplayer focused Elden Ring experience. So I could see them announcing a release date for, what are they calling it? The Tarnished Edition of Elden Ring.
Yeah.
And then giving us an announcement of Night Rain to come at a later date.
It makes sense, for sure. All right.
Or, I mean, is Dustbloods too similar to Night Rain?
We don't know. We haven't really seen enough to know. Dustbloods we know is next year, though, so there's still a lot of time to show that. And it's also published by Nintendo themselves, so they'll hold that to their chest. But let's wrap up for now with one final publisher, which I guess is Bandai Namco, but it's also PlayStation, which has become a trend. So we just had Patapon. Everybody's Golf is coming out. We've had Freedom Wars. We've had quite a lot of actual PlayStation IP. That's not even including MLB and Lego Horizon. Bandai Namco aren't going to stop, though. They're not going to stop at Patapon. So, Derek, what's the next PlayStation game on Switch?
The next PlayStation game on Switch. The two that immediately come to mind as the most likely to happen in terms of being something similar to Patapon, it would be Loco Roco or Gravity Rush.
Loco Roco's the logical one. Easy to remaster. Very similar to Patapon. I agree. And I agree with Gravity Rush. I think that's incredibly likely.
Yeah.
Those are interesting choices. I have different ones.
Okay.
I don't think they're going to put out their premiere titles. I think it's going to be definitely smaller.
It's like the Japan studio graveyard they're kind of shoveling up, but there's potential for more.
I actually think they are going to put a premiere title on there. And for me, it's one of two options. And it's going to be funny because one I think is a great idea. The other I think is going to net them some criticism.
Okay.
The one that I think is a great idea is just the original Horizon Forbidden West. Or not, sorry, Horizon Zero Dawn.
Zero Dawn.
Yeah.
I think that Zero Dawn is old enough that Sony has made their money off that game, and putting it to the Switch 2 audience will just give them an additional boost in dollars. They already put Lego Horizon on there, so they could put non-baby Horizon on the Switch 2 and monetize another audience for that game. The other one that I think is likely is The Last of Us Part 1. And I could, see, you already know what the reaction would be.
I could see it, but I also just thought of something probably more likely than both of those because it's coming to Xbox. Helldivers.
Oh, Helldivers, yeah.
Oh, Helldivers. If they put Helldivers on, that would be incredible. I wonder about, I do wonder, as somebody who plays Helldivers a lot, whether even the Switch 2 could handle it, with a quick and dirty port. And the reason why I think, The Last of Us or Horizon is because those are PS4 games, and that even without using any of the Switch's DLSS or any of that, you can port those games and get them to run fairly well without a lot of development time and effort. I think something like Helldivers, which struggled on the base PS5, would see some significant issues on Switch 2 without a really good optimization pass.
It would.
I think that they would.
Remember, too, Helldivers is now also an Xbox Series S game.
That's true, too. That is true. We haven't seen how it runs on
No, we haven't seen how it runs. I imagine not great, but it's not impossible.
Yeah, that's true. It's not impossible. And to be fair, Helldivers 2 does run on the Steam Deck. You can optimize it to get decent enough performance out of it. So it is possible. And Man, that I gotta say, Derek, that would be the one for me. Obviously,
Yeah.
I would love that because I've kind of fallen off of Helldivers in recent months, but putting it on the Switch 2 would bring me right back. Especially if you could use mouse mode. That is a shooting centric game, and having precise aiming is key. So that would be I've seen people play it on PC with their mice, and they do stuff I couldn't dream of doing with a controller. So I would love to have that kind of ease and accessibility of using mouse control.
With PlayStation, I feel like the line is kind of drawn at live service and franchises, which they just don't use anymore, which is why Bandai Namco's licensing all the Japan studio games. But some non-Japan studio games, Psyonix, they did Wipeout and Lemmings, which are also dormant. Lemmings is like... I feel it was, at least in Europe, it was super, super popular. Like a huge PC series. Had like console ports on Mega Drive and Super Nintendo. I would die for a new Lemmings. And that's like another perfect mouse game. So bring Lemmings back.
Lemmings is an interesting one. You know, I was a kid during its heyday, so I can't attest to the popularity of it here in the States, but I could tell you that you could not open like a Game Pro or an EGM or anything without seeing a full page ad for Lemmings, like sometimes multiple of them in one issue. And so clearly there was something behind it here. But no, I didn't really have access to a gaming PC as a kid, so I didn't see them. I've played it. I love the series, but yeah, I could see that. I don't know how possible it is, but I'd love to see it. It's one of those things that I want to happen.
All right. Are we ending on Lemmings, or is there one more thing?
No, I think I got one more thing because I
All
do
right.
have one other thought here. I think we could see something from Konami.
Yes.
I don't know if we'll get Silent Hill F, but I think Silent Hill 2 has a good chance of being announced as just one of the older titles bringing it over. But I think also Konami does a lot of collections like Capcom. We got a bunch of those Castlevania collections, got arcade collections. I'd love to see another collection for them, whatever it might be. There's a lot of classics there. There's a lot of Castlevania games they could still port over. There's the Rebirth collection. I think people would really enjoy because those games are basically lost now.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
I think a really cool thing, especially after what they did with Yu-Gi-Oh!, especially translating a lot of those games, I think it'd be awesome if they get a Goemon collection.
Oh, Goemon would be sick.
Because there's so many of his games that never came to the States. Getting translations for those games or even just making them available would be really cool.
Yeah.
And Legend of Mystical Ninja 64 is fantastic. I spent so much time playing that game. It was super, super great. A classic N64 game that's wildly overlooked.
Yeah, totally. Also, Metal Gear is incredibly likely. Delta,
Yes.
I think, could happen. Xbox
Delta.
gets, instead of Snake versus Monkey, it gets Bomberman. But we already had Yoshi's in Snake Eater 3D. So I felt like you could just replace Bomberman or the Ape Escape monkeys with Yoshi and just shoot a bunch of them.
Is it
Just shooting you.
is it time for the next Metal Gear collection? Because they had that first. They had like that Volume 1 collection.
Yeah, Volume 2's... It's got to happen. You don't just do a Volume 1, do you? I think
Yeah.
it's probably Guns of the Patriots, then 5, like Ground Zeroes and Phantom Pain, Ghost Babel.
I was going to say, at least put that on NSO.
Yeah, and the Acid games, I guess. Maybe Portable Ops and Peace Walker as well.
Yeah.
I guess that's everything, really.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah,
So I do think we have to end on one specific question.
sure.
Because Nintendo loves to, like we said at the very beginning of this, they typically bookend their directs, right? So there's a big game at the front, and there's usually a big game at the end. Do we think Nintendo's going to have a big game at the end of the direct? And if we do, what game is it?
Lemmings.
I'm going to put out this. Here's my Hail Mary. That'd be insane. That people would just lose it. We've also not talked Shadow Drops.
Yeah.
I think end with Silk Song Shadow Drop.
Oh, sure.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's... It feels like they usually end on a big Nintendo game, but Silk Song has the
Silk
legacy
Song
now.
would be big enough to fit the bill. However, I'm going to say that I think that Xbox is still going to have the rights to like Shadow Drop Silk Song at some point because
Maybe.
they very confidently put egg all over their face with like, oh, it's coming this year, and that was like 2 years ago. I think that Team Cherry owes Xbox that one.
And it was a sizzle reel last time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just relegated it to a sizzle reel. I don't think any of the big three have confidence on that game coming out anytime soon. I personally think that we're going to get a tease, and that tease is going to be 3D Mario. I think they're going to show off like traditionally the Zelda team does this. They like trot out Aonuma. He shows like 15 to 30 seconds of whatever they're working on and then says, please wait a little longer. I think we get that from Mario this time.
Yeah. I was thinking either a Mario tease or a Flaming Smash logo. Like one of those two to sort of tease something big coming.
Ooh, all right. I think it could be any of those things. I think I think that Nintendo is going to want to use this Direct to build confidence in the future of the console, and I think you do that by teasing something really big.
Yeah, totally. Lemmings. So I think that's probably it for now. There's so many things that could come. We haven't gone to Animal Crossing. We haven't got a Pikmin. There's lots of potential for more things, but it's so hard to predict. And we didn't even mention Dragon Drive. Shame on us. So thank you for watching, everybody. And we will be there reacting to this Direct when it happens. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, live audience, for being in that bubble. And we will catch you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.